Oh, there's a whole group.
They're all here for you, Chandra.
Stop.
We told them you're coming, and they're like, I gotta be there.
Oh,
It's a true story. You're like our local celebrity.
oh. Why? No.
Oh, 100%.
You're right. You're not local. You're a nationwide story already.
Yeah.
Cool. Now we're talking. Getting the party started. So sweet. Start thinking. Colin and I will cover topic. We will have questions and Q&A at the end too. So start your thinking caps on.
Bring your dinner to a meeting.
Yeah. We have many that do that. What do you got there, Chandra?
I have a salad with feta and mushroom, a bunch of grilled shrimp.
Ooh.
Sounds delicious.
Sounds amazing.
And Olive Garden dressing. Oh.
Ooh, just a little nice. I love the light Olive Garden dressing more than the full. I might be a weirdo, but that's me.
Yeah, you're weird.
I feel like it's less intense of a flavor, you know? The other one's so strong.
Yes.
See? You know what's up.
All right. Well, cool beans. So Noah just got back from New York. Schwanky, bougie city. And I've been stuck at home with the kids the entire weekend alone. So we'll go from there. So before we kind of talk about resilience was kind of the topic of today. Are there any Q&As or any issues or difficulties anybody's having before we launch into that? Deb, Chandra, Jan, Angela? You said every day, Deb. Yeah.
Chandra,
Yes.
you said that, right?
Yes, Chandra. That's right. He'll get it one of these years.
I'll never get it. She even prompted me the other day with her, I forget, you did it very tactfully too. And I still jacked it up. And I was like, I know why she said that. And I'm going to try, but I'm still going to screw it up.
It's okay.
I'm sorry.
I'll just call you Camel.
That's great. Camel, Kelbone, whatever.
The Camel.
That's amazing.
All right. Yep.
Dude, Kellen, you know Rana?
Yeah.
Would you believe that after like 7 months into it, she was telling a story and she's like, my friend said to me, you know Rana, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, hold up. Did you say Rana? She's like, yeah. I'm like, I've been calling you Rona for 7 months straight. You've never corrected me once. She's like, yeah, I just don't really do that. I'm like, what do you mean?
See, that's so funny because I thought that was your nickname for her. So I was just like, oh, that's cool. They have a thing.
I'm glad I'm not the only one.
Oh, that's funny. Because like when she was in Brazil with us when I was a missionary kid. And in Portuguese, that's how like people would pronounce her name. And so I just thought that's what she went by. And I was like, oh, that's cool. She's letting Noah use her like spirit animal name or whatever.
Yeah.
Well, interesting. All right. Well, cool beans, people. So if nobody has any Q&As, what we're going to hit on is resiliency. Okay. And basically that's just the ability to bounce back when you face challenges or issues come up. And there's basically 8 pillars of resiliency. And over the last month, I created this not big giant, but I created an ebook that talks to that. Thus, I have a lot of content in here that Noah and I are going to speak to, and we'd love your input in as well. So the first pillar of resiliency is reaching out, okay? And so that includes having a strong social network and community around you. And I have 2 examples of where this has made a huge difference in my life because so often, and stereotyping, I feel like ladies are much better at this than dudes are. When I went through officer candidate school with the Marines, I was not literally going to die, but it was the best, worst experience of my life. It was by far the hardest, most psychologically challenging things I've ever been to. And I'd always been really successful up to this point. At OCS, I failed so much, so often. Like it was, and everybody did. It was unimaginable. But what that forced me to do was to rely on other people and ask for help. And that's why I think being resilient, being able to bounce back is so important. How that translates to weight loss and getting fit is oftentimes once you've kind of made the initial step to start and reached out for help, like if you're working with us or with other groups or whatever, you've overcome that barrier. The next hard thing is going to be is you're going to ask us a question, or we're going to set something up in the app, and you're going to be like, okay, he just told me what this means and how to do it. But you either forget or it just doesn't register. We've been doing this for years, so we think it's easy. But we realize sometimes it takes you 2-3 times to understand something or really get it. That is completely okay. Okay. But the takeaway here is just make sure you ask us, even if you feel like you've asked us the same question 5 times, we don't care. Reach out and ask for help. Does that make sense? Hopefully it does. All right. Noah, you have any thoughts on this?
I totally agree. Or even too, if you're trying something out for the first time, like I admire the kindness and the thought behind it, but like if you spend 30-40 minutes messing with something, be it in the app or in general, like 3 minutes into it, be like, hey Noah, I just don't want to. Because not only is it my pleasure to help you, and it's literally like the entire purpose behind coaching is to streamline your success, but like also you're paying us for that. So like on all ends, I totally admit I'm the same way that I'm really bad at reaching out for help and stuff like that. But can't say enough that like I would always much rather have a client be like, hey Noah, can you save me 30 minutes and a lot of stress and do this, versus just, you know, struggling on your own, and then I have to check in later and be like, why aren't you logging? You're like, oh well, like 3 days ago I didn't know how to log this one food. I just gave up. And I'm like, no.
That is really good and super practical. 100%. All right. Second pillar of resiliency is eat a healthy diet. All right. So I'll give you my opinion on what a healthy diet looks like, but we're going to let Noah go first since I went first last time. So in its most simplistic terms, Noah, what is a healthy diet? What does that look like? What's it composed of?
Absolutely. So a healthy diet consists of eating within a calorie goal that is congruent with your goals. So if you're looking to slowly gain weight, I know, right? So if you're
really fancy, Noah.
I get there sometimes. So if you're looking to put on a little bit of muscle, it's going to be a slight calorie surplus. If you're looking to maintain, then you're going to be at whatever is calculated for you to maintain weight. Or if you're looking to lose weight, eating there. All of them will be healthy at certain times, certain ranges for certain amounts of time. Also within a good macronutrient profile. So if you only carbs and no proteins or fats, you're going to be missing out on some very important features of your body. For instance, the material you need to maintain or build muscle. Or fats are used for all sorts of things. Healthy fats are used to help your cholesterol. They're actually used, the hormones that you use to send signals throughout your body are actually from fats or precursors from those. And so there's going to be all sorts of things that are not working out in your body. You also miss out on all sorts of micronutrients. So it's not about having only protein, even though we do preach that protein is very important and useful. And also a lot of people get worried because they'll go like 20 grams over their fat goal or something, but they're within 20 grams of their fat goal and 20 grams of their carb goal. They're totally fine as long as you don't have like 0 of any of them. And so within a good macronutrient profile, good calorie profile, but most importantly, whole foods is the end goal. So some good veggies, proteins with each meal. If you need a good rule of thumb, if each of your meals, a third of the plate is proteins, a third of the plate is veggies, and a quarter to a third is starches and fruits, you're in a really good place because then you're not missing out on micronutrients. You'll be naturally full and satiated because they're whole foods and they're not that processed crap that doesn't even signal any of the satiety things to their brain. And you'll be feeling much better.
Yeah, 100%. And just out of curiosity, how many, since we've talked about this numerous times, does anybody remember how many grams of protein you want per pound of lean body weight? Or what we recommend? Anybody?
One.
Boom! Deb, if there was a prize, you would get it.
Prize for the job well done.
Wait, repeat that again.
Yeah, I will. So in a perfect scenario, you want 1 gram of protein per pound of lean body weight, or to make it simple, whatever your target body weight is, set it at that. So let's say you want to weigh 120, 130, 140, whatever it is. In a simplistic, like if you're just going to coach one of your buddies or friends or whatnot, that's the aim. If women and men got 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight and 90% of their diet was consumed with whole foods, Women would end up being around 20 to 24% body fat, which is good. Men would be about 12 to 18. Problem is we eat way too much processed food and sugar and garbage like that. But if you can get 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight, or target body weight if you're obese or morbidly obese, that's what you're going for.
Well, and one thing.
And if all you did, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry, I totally interrupted you. I was gonna say one thing to give more context too is that when he says per pound of lean body mass, a lot of people really underestimate what percentage of the body is lean body mass, because
True.
every time you get a body fat percentage, you're like, there's no way I'm 40% body fat. Like that's insane. So like when you look at it and you're like, oh my gosh, I need like 200 grams of protein. It might not be that. If you were to step on a scale and get the test done, it might be closer to like 120, maybe 130. So don't freak out if it sounds impossible.
Yeah, and so like with ladies, typically the safest way to do it is whatever your target body weight is. That's typically a pretty safe, good place to start, depending on where you're at. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the way you obtain that, this is going off script a little bit, but these are questions we get all the time. And so the next typical question is, how in the world am I going to get 120, 150 grams of protein, right? The simplest, easiest way to do that is typically, I mean, I like 3 meals for most people because I like them to eliminate snacking, but especially at the beginning, consuming that much protein, because people typically only consume 20, 30, 40 grams tops, is you're probably going to have to split that up into 4 or 5 meals, or 3 meals and some protein shakes. But ideally, that's still processed food. Whole foods are better. Is basically just get whatever that number is and divide it by however many meals you're going to have, 3, 4, whatever, and that should be your target amount of protein. But also be cognizant, if let's say your protein goal is 40 grams of protein per meal, if you have 30 grams of protein, the other stuff you consume with that meal is probably going to get you pretty close to that 40. Because even though, like, I'm not saying you eat a whole bunch of pasta, but let's say you have pasta. Pasta does have protein in it. Okay, ice cream has protein in it, but you have to eat like 5 gallons to get anything out of it. But so my point is you don't have to be like, okay, I need 40 grams of chicken breast, I need 40 grams of steak, or whatever it is. You can probably get away with about 30 to 33 grams of a protein source, and then whatever you're going to consume with that meal is probably going to make up the difference. That's an idea too. All right.
I'm surprised too quickly you can do that once you have an idea of what a lean protein source is. Like so many people, they struggle because they're like, oh, I'll only have whole eggs, or I'll have like a peanut butter and jelly sandwich.
Yeah. Oh.
You're like, this is impossible. But the second you just have like a chicken breast or like Greek yogurt and egg whites, you're like, oh, this is easy.
Yeah. So like to give you an idea, like if you have a chicken breast the size of I had a 12-ounce chicken breast today for dinner just now, and it was like 75 grams of protein. Granted, I'm 6'2", 225. I'm not saying you need to do that, but like it ain't that big. Okay. You'll be shocked when you actually weigh and measure it. And then it becomes a lot more intuitive, which is the ultimate goal. All right. Any other questions on healthy eating or protein or any of that? If not, third pillar of resiliency is exercise. Okay. And I have 2 thoughts on this. Okay. Is the best form of exercise to lose weight and improve your aesthetics, and honestly just overall well-being, has been shown time and time again through studies to be resistance training, i.e. doing some form of thing that taxes your muscles and makes them fatigue so that they have to repair, so on and so forth. Now, that being said, that is the best thing you can do. That being said, even though that may be the best thing, if you can't consistently do it because you don't enjoy it, it's okay to do something else. Ultimately, if you make something sustainable,
You're killing you paused for about 20 seconds there.
Oh, sorry, my bad.
You're good.
So basically, if resistance training is the top thing you can do, right, but it's not enjoyable, that pretty much means it's not sustainable long term. And then it is okay to do something else, okay? Because at the end of the day, something that you can habitually do that you enjoy, or I would suggest you learn to enjoy resistance training, but that's not always feasible. That's going to have way bigger impact over what you do in a lifetime versus a pinprick of a year of your life. Does that make sense? And so exercise is like compound interest. Okay. If you could, I mean, if it's pickleball, which is really awesome, by the way, or what, my dad actually broke his hip playing pickleball, but anyway, whole other story. But if you can find something that you enjoy and you can sustain long term, that is really the secret of losing weight, keeping it off. And that's why we like you to log your food. That's why we like you to do resistance training and experiment with other things. Because ultimately, once you log your food and you get some solid habits as far as whole foods go, once you've nailed down the basics, you would be amazed if you can just be 80% consistent, the difference your body and how it's going to change over time. All right. Any questions on exercise? None? Perfect. Okay. Third pillar is go outside. Okay. So as we learned through the great COVID epidemic of 2020, is we are terribly deficient when it comes to vitamin D. Has everybody heard this like 5,000 times already? If not, you should have. Okay. Getting outside, spending time with your kids, grandkids, whatever it is, going to the park is something super simple, and it's also been shown to be something super, super beneficial for our overall well-being and just how it improves our mood. And I am a super busybody and workaholic. It drives me nuts to have to get up and break up my routine, especially when I'm focused on a roll. But I have been, one of the first things I do after I take the kids to school is I park and I walk and I go, it's only like, I think it's 8 minutes, but I walk outside, up my street and back down. Because direct sunlight has been shown to be super beneficial for your mood and how you just feel about yourself, okay? It seems hoity-toity, and I'm really not one of those, like, granola people, but it works, okay? Noah, do you have any granola thoughts on that? Noah's more granola than I am, okay? I used to be vegan in the whole thing, but anyway.
I wouldn't say granola thoughts, but just thoughts in general of, yes, particularly the wavelengths that you experience at the beginning of the day and end of the day are particularly beneficial. It's also good for regulating your circadian rhythm, because basically back in our hunter-gatherer days, we didn't have fluorescent lighting and everything to ruin our circadian rhythms. And so we'd wake up based on the day. And so pretty much your alertness and sleepiness are inversely proportional between your melatonin levels and your cortisol levels. So when you wake up, your cortisol, it's an alertness hormone. When in excess, it becomes a stress hormone and causes all sorts of issues. But really, if you had no cortisol at all, you just wouldn't be alert. You'd pretty much just be like catatonic there on the floor. And so that'll increase as you wake up. And so getting the sunlight in there, especially as soon as you can, will help a lot from helping you to wake up and have lasting energy throughout the day. And then also staying out of the crappy light, keeping the blue light out of your face at night will also allow the melatonin to naturally increase as the cortisol decreases at the end of the day. So your sleep cycle gets better, all that good stuff. And actually, fun fact, the two jobs, I remember one of them might be made up, but I remember lumberjacks are one of them. But the lowest rates of like depression or suicide or anxiety are park rangers and lumberjacks. Well, lumberjacks, wood harvesters, people who have their entire job outside in the woods in the middle of nowhere, just because they're
Sawyers. No one calls them wood harvesters, Noah.
wood harvesters.
Wood harvesters.
It's been a long day.
Yeah, my uncle would slap you. That's funny. Longer. Yeah, that's my uncle was. That's funny. Wood harvesters. That was good. It sounded spot on.
You know, I Point University takes all their names of their faculty and tries to spruce them up. So instead of like landscaping, it's campus enhancement. I feel like I just subconsciously did that with logging.
Yeah, you did.
You 100% did. You should be their marketing manager.
There you go. Got it.
Okay. All right. So fifth thing is something that I used to think was, I don't know. I thought it was not necessarily for the mentally weak, but basically, I mean, is self-development, just to be 100% honest. I thought the people who read all these like these little pick-me-up books and whatnot were mentally weak. I'm just being honest. That being said, once I became an entrepreneur and I launched Just You Fitness, I was super mentally weak because I was stressed all the time, especially at the beginning. And can you hear Riker just crying right now?
Yes.
Awesome. Yeah. I'm not abusing her. That's Beth. Just FYI. No. But anyway, what's something that I have found immensely valuable is find, whether it's reading self-help books. I am a huge advocate, if you follow me at all, of devotions and meditating on scripture and journaling that down. That has made a huge impact in my life, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. But the point is to have some practice where you're doing some sort of self-development. Okay. And one of the simplest, easiest ways for me, besides like what I recommended with scripture memorization and all that, is just get a podcast that you really enjoy. And when you're driving, listen to it for 30 minutes or whatnot. If you're more into, I love Mind Pump. I mean, I'm probably not much you're going to love Mind Pump, but it is amazing. If you're interested in weight loss, working out, I agree with pretty much 99% of everything they say. The other thing you can do that I would recommend if you're into like the Bible, but you're like, there's no way I have that much time to dedicate it to, the Bible in 1 Year app. You can literally press play, and in about 25 minutes over the course of a year, he'll read through the entire Bible and give you the cliff notes of what it means and how it can apply to your life. But anyway, self-development is number 5. It's huge. Noah, you have any self-development things?
Yeah, I mean, can't stress enough how important it is. Growth is one of like the most fundamental things to the human experience that is really fulfilling. And so, yeah, I mean, books will be huge. And then also keep in mind that like when you're signed up, or like, let's say clients of ours, like you're already in the field of self-development, pretty much just instead of a book or a podcast, you're almost interacting with us, pushing yourself in that regard. And I can't think of a more perfect microcosm of any of the skills you need to succeed in life than in, health and fitness, because you're learning planning, you're learning accountability, you're learning reaching out. Alpha time, well, you're getting exercise. You'll end up being outside more. You're going to learn delayed gratification. You're going to learn facing disappointment. Literally everything you need, being able to withstand negative emotions or negative feelings. Literally everything that you need will be encapsulated in there. That's why you see so many people who have a story of, oh, like my life was crap and I got in shape, and I'm like, oh, maybe I can do something with myself now. Like I've seen that story like 1,000 times. And so, yeah, I can't stress enough that like you're almost experiencing self-development right now in this sphere. But yeah, the podcast thing is huge, because you'd be surprised how much you can get done while driving. Also, if you get up to 2 times speed, you feel like you're superhuman. You see that duration go from like 2 hours to like 54 minutes. You're like, yeah, that's pretty cool.
That's why you get paid the big bucks, Noah. That was very well said. Much better than what I said. Go with what he said. That was way better.
We'll call it a tie.
That was great. All right. And the 6th pillar is be mindful. Okay. And this is one that I struggle with a lot, in the sense of it's a habit. It's not innate for me. I'm a busybody. I want to go, and it is. And I turned 40 this year, and it is something that only recently, in the last 2 years, have I really been able to have a structured quiet time where I work on reading, writing, journaling my thoughts, how it applies to me. That can look like yoga, breathing, meditation, prayer, whatever, journaling. And it's like I said, and I was a missionary kid, okay? You think I would have been a lot better at this. And there were stages in my life, but once I don't know, after we had Riker, she's 2. Right before then, there was, I don't know, something just changed, and there was a thirst there. And this practice, despite how busy I am, this is the one thing that I will never skip and not do, because it has such a powerful impact. If I do this, no matter how crappy my day was, like today, just to be completely honest, I will still be typically positive and joyful, regardless of what has happened. And I think that really starts with waking up and being mindful and aware of what's going on and how you're feeling and what's going on and what you're doing. Noah, you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'm really glad it's on here, because mindfulness to me pretty much precedes almost every positive thing. Because if you didn't notice or were mindful enough to even see that you had, a health thing you want to change, where you wanted to either lose weight or put on muscle, or you were paying attention to how you felt, or if you didn't even keep track or were present enough to notice things going on in your life, you wouldn't even notice a need for a change. And so it precedes everything. It's almost like you can't diagnose what's going on unless you're paying attention to it and noticing it. And you'd be surprised in a world that's full of
We're so busy.
Yes. When you have like, if you look at your phone and you're like, oh, dude, how did I have 8 hours of screen time? I feel like I had no free time. And you're like, oh, shoot, like I literally had no time to even take care of myself. And if you're looking for resources, because it's a very wide field with a lot of conflicting info, but like this book here, oh man, I'm gonna have to turn off the filter. All right, hold on. I'm in the middle of a move, so no one judge too hard. But it's called The Mind Illuminated. Amazing book. It's pretty much like step by step, everything you need. Going from I don't know anything about meditation. Here, I'll put it back. So like, anything you know from I know nothing about meditation to like, yo, I'm like ascending to another plane of existence. You'll start levitating off the floor at like month 3. So, but it's really cool because there's so many things to run into. You're like, is this normal? Like, how did you like? You'll second guess everything. And the same with it when you're doing like a fitness program. You're like, is it normal for my weight to be the same 2 days in a row? Is it normal for it to be completely different 2 days in a row? Like, how do I get protein? Like, it hits all of those, and it's very thorough, very user friendly. The other thing too is the head.
Put that in the chat, Noah.
Oh, absolutely. I got you. I'm very passionate on the subject. So The Mind Illuminated by John Yates and colleagues. You can get it on Amazon. I think it's like $20-$30, but that thing's amazing. The other thing too is the Headspace app, which I believe has a 30-day free trial. And then you can do it for like $7 a month or something, but it's guided meditations and it walks you through all those things too. But yeah, every study ever has shown that it's like one of the most powerful things for overall health and wellness, happiness, clarity. You'll find you'll get distracted less easy. Just normal everyday things become more fulfilling because you're not so distracted from all of it. And like little mundane things of like, oh my gosh, like I see the sky on my way to work. And you're like, wow, that's pretty. Like those little things add up to being like amazing. And then you'll actually notice things like, you'll feel it spilling over to other productive things in your life. Like when you're working out, you'll notice during the workout, like, oh, I'm extra fatigued today. What's going on? Versus like 3 weeks go by and you're like, oh, I've been overtraining and didn't notice. Or if you're like eating, you're like, oh, I'm actually full because I'm paying attention to how I feel. You stop eating there versus like 30 minutes later, you're like dying on the floor because you just didn't pay attention to how you actually felt. Or when you're eating crappy meals, it's easier to stop doing it because you'll notice how you feel afterwards versus if you don't pay attention. And I said this 1,000 times, but I just want to say it every time because I can't stress how much it blew my mind, where they did studies of people trying to quit smoking, and they gave the one group patches, they gave one group vapes, they gave one group, hey, you have to quit cold turkey. And then one group, all they did was assign mindfulness. So they just said like, hey, journal about how you feel about smoking and just pay attention to how it tastes when you're smoking it. And that group had the highest success rate of quitting out of any of the other ones. Like even fighting a physiological dependency on a substance, they were still able to do it just by paying attention to how they felt. And then they no longer associated positive things with it. So it does all those things for you. The way I would describe it, because I hear a lot of people say, oh, my brain's too crazy, or like I can't focus, or like sitting down for 5 minutes being quiet is like impossible for me. That's kind of like someone who's like 400 pounds coming up to me like, oh, I'm too heavy to lose weight. Like, what do you mean? Like, what is like, you need it most. And so it might be difficult. You might start with like 30 seconds of mindfulness, or like the guy who would teach all the mindfulness practices at Google would say, hey, just start with one deep, slow breath. And they're like, that's stupid. And then people like 2 months later would come up to him and be like, oh my gosh, thank you. Like that actually started the entire journey. Like do what you can. And the way they describe it of like achieving mindfulness is, let's say you have a billion thoughts going on all the time. It's not even about stopping those thoughts. It's the difference between standing in the middle of a thunderstorm and trying to look around and parse what's going on versus standing inside a house where it's like warm and calm and chill and you're looking out at the thunderstorm. So there's a level of removing yourself from the things you're experiencing that give you a lot more clarity and depth, and you don't identify with it, which is a completely different thing. It's hard to describe. Like once you experience it, you're like, oh my gosh, I can never go back.
It's a form of control. I mean, they don't like when you say that, but it gives you a perceived power of control that you didn't know or realize. I think would that be fair to say? That's how I was with binge eating. And I did intermittent fasting, and sustaining from that, I became more mindful of how I felt when I was hungry. I was mindful of how certain foods affected me. And what that did is empowered me and really gave me control over being addicted and just wanting to binge on food, like when I was 308 pounds. Mm-hmm. That's when I think of mindfulness and how it's helped me. It's given me some sense, especially when it comes to eating and exercising, it gives me a sense of control, and I feel empowered. Not as sexy as what you said, but still good.
Well, the way they put it, that actually goes really well, is that it's pretty much the identification that between every stimulus and reaction, you have a choice there. There's time that happens. And so you're not a victim of your circumstance. Obviously, they'll play a role and like, it'll be difficult, but like you always have that. And Viktor Frankl, I don't know if you guys ever read Man's Search for Meaning, but he's the guy who was in the concentration camps and pretty much he wrote a book of like, it's an amazing, like super essential read. And he goes through and like he's in a concentration camp. If anyone has the right to say I have no control over my circumstances, it's him. But what he did is he spent the entire book and his time there saying, what do I have control over? What can I learn about the human condition? And his fundamental thing he came with is, I have the ability to choose how I react to these circumstances, and that's something they can never take away from me. And he's like, the people who realized that were the ones who survived. The other ones were the ones who died oftentimes, just because like their will wouldn't. I mean, obviously there's far more than that, but yes, it is very well put, Kellen.
Cool. All right. So the seventh pillar is something I'm absolutely trash at. Absolute trash, not perfect. And honestly, Noah's at least is pretty bad at this one too. Okay, sleep. Okay. Unfortunately, typically, if I get 6 hours of sleep in a night, that is really, really, really good for me. All right. But sleep, and nobody's perfect, right? So I know you thought I was perfect, but I'm not. I'm joking, by the way. Is sleep is super, super essential. And when it comes to losing weight, weight loss, and exercise, there may be nothing more important than getting around 7 to 9 hours of sleep, somewhere in there, depending on your age and whatnot. And if you don't get that much sleep, from a hormone standpoint, your cravings and how you like when you eat, if you feel full, leptin, ghrelin, there's all these things that get super jacked up super fast. Sorry, did I? When you don't get enough sleep. And that was one of the big reasons I was a morbidly obese kid. And I lost some of the weight in high school when I was playing football. I got down to 240. But then I got up to 308. And one of the worst things for me is when I don't sleep well, it is a battle not to consume crap still for me. But if I can like turn my mind off a little bit and actually sleep for 7 hours, it like today, it makes a huge difference in my ability to combat honestly eating mindlessly and eating crap. Because what it does when you don't sleep is it makes you crave salty, sugary, fatty foods, and it makes it so that you don't feel full. A lethal combination when you're trying to lose weight. And it gets worse because your willpower, okay, is like a can of shaving cream. The more you use it, and it can be mundane things. Am I going to wear a red shirt or a white shirt? That uses up some of your spray, your willpower. At the end of the day, typically we've used up all our willpower. And when we see our kids get out the stinking gallon thing of ice cream and they're pounding like, Dad, you want some? You're like, you know what? I do want some. And so, and then it just goes off from there. Okay. No, do you have any idea? I know he studied way more in depth on sleep. Go ahead.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, do you want me to go through like some helpful things for it too?
I know. Yeah, well, sure. Yeah. What are the top tips? There we go. How about that?
So we'll do that too. You hit on everything exactly that I was going to hit. So I love that. Where yes, it'll increase your hunger, decrease willpower, keep you from being full. Because pretty much your body's like, we have no energy. What do? Sugar gives us fast energy, so that's always fun. But yes. So yes, so sleep hygiene is really important. If you want a good book, I forget the guy who wrote it, but Sleep Smarter is another very practical, awesome book. Let me look up the author here. Sean Stevenson. There we go. I'll put that link in the chat as well. Very simple, very easy to read, but pretty much the top tips are control your environment. So you want to make sure that your bedroom is literally just a place for only sleeping. And so what that means is no lights. The thing that blew my mind is they did a study where they had people go into sleep, REM sleep, which is your deep sleep where you're dreaming, rapid eye movement. That's your restful restorative sleep. And you're supposed to do a cycle of those every about 60 to 90 minutes. And they put people in a very deep sleep in a pitch black room, and they took a light about the size of a quarter, and they put it on the back of their knee, and it took them out of REM sleep. All it took. And so blackout curtains will be huge. An eye mask can be huge. So leaving that TV on in the corner is way more powerful than you think, especially the sound will actually be stimulating your brain and keeping you from going to REM sleep too. So create a good environment for it. You want it to be cool. About 62 to 68 degrees is actually optimal for sleep, especially for someone who overheats all the time like me. You might invest in some cooling sheets or perhaps a fan in the room. That'll be huge. So keep it dark, keep it cool, stay out of it when doing other things. So if you work in bed, your brain will no longer associate and predispose you to sleep when you go to the bedroom. So if you're outside of that room and you only use that room for sleep, and the same with it when you enter the gym, you know, okay, this is what we do when we go in the gym. When you leave your bedroom for only sleep, when you go in, your brain's already working on, okay, execute sleep.exe. We're going to start the sleep cycle here. That's going to be another powerful thing too. Keep phones away. Blue light before bed will suppress melatonin, which helps you fall asleep. And so we don't want to be doing that. So at least 30 hours, up to an hour, hour and a half. You want to cut it off before bed, so that's phones. Honestly, even having Wi-Fi on your phone in the room can also disrupt sleep too. Those signals can be damaging or have negative effects. You can see a lot of modern day inventions coming in and messing us up. But yeah, some people even recommend you could put like this, for like a better term, like a sheet over your modem that kind of blocks the signals. There's also sheets that you can get to do that. This is something he talks about in the book too. Another thing is don't eat too close before bed. So about 2 hours before bed would be the cutoff I'd recommend, because if you're digesting while going to sleep, that's going to take, A, you can wake up with some pretty bad acid reflux, and B, it can keep you from going into deep sleep. Working out too close to bed. So like, let's say you go to bed.
Yes.
Yeah.
For sure.
Like an hour and a half before. Some people, it like mentally puts them down, but it raises your core body temperature for up to 2 hours. And again, being cool is really important for restorative sleep. So that can be a negative side effect. Those are the preliminary ones. There's a lot of good ones on there. Also, if you need, supplementation can help. Melatonin, like I said, is a powerful one. I'd recommend taking it in cycles, so don't take it for the rest of your life because your body will become dependent on it. So I would take it to kind of get in the habit as a supplement to help you establish a sleep cycle. So a consistent time of going to bed and consistent time of getting up helps a ton. Last one, going to sleep between 10 a.m. or 10 p.m. and 2 a.m. Those are actually the most restorative hours of sleep. They're quote unquote twice as restful, depending on your, because we're predisposed to sleeping in that era given circadian rhythms and when the sun, usually comes down and comes up. So your body as humans, we're like, okay, that's when we need to sleep. So you're actually more predisposed and have a better hormone profile for restorative sleep in that time period. So
I need to go to bed earlier.
Sorry?
I need to go to bed earlier.
Oh yeah, 100%. So yes,
right.
That's enough for now. But yeah, that book will be huge to help you guys too.
Cool. And then the last one before Q&A is just practice gratitude. You're going to feel more optimism. It fights negativity, helps you become more solution oriented, which I think is the best benefit, and something that people habitually are like, dude, you're always happy and you always have these different ideas and you're always solution oriented. And a lot of that I think has to do with because of gratitude. It's something I do before, when I wake up and before I go to bed. No, any thoughts there?
Couldn't agree more. Yeah, I think it's important in every area of life. Where something I say a lot for anyone I've worked for or worked with or has worked under me is things can be expected, but they should never be taken for granted. It's like anytime you have employees doing stuff like the right way all the time, and then one day they mess up and you like cuss them out, like they're not gonna have a good experience because then feel like, oh, all the other 90 times of this right wasn't worth anything to you. Or like I'd always thank people for being on time. And they're like, no, that's expected. I'm like, yeah, but they still did it. Like it's something they contributed, stuff like that. That's so good. Practicing that for yourself and others goes a really, really long way. And then also just basic things like the Stoic philosophers, they would take a practice of either getting in a, which are like Epictetus, Marcus Aurelius, Socrates, all those good philosophers back in the day in like Rome, Greece era. They would either wear like pretty much like a potato sack, or they just sleep on the floor without a pillow once a week or every 2 weeks, just to give them perspective on how good they had it. And we have it like a million times better than them. We have running water, we have sewer system, like we got it going on. And so that helps a ton for perspective. So totally agree on the gratitude side of things.
All right, cool. So I just shared the 7-day resiliency checklist that you can just click, or you might have to copy and paste it. I don't know how this does it. And you can use it to reference, and maybe you want to tailor or pick and choose some things you want to work on. But you can view it. and have at it. If you have any questions on it, you can always hit myself or Noah up about it. So that being said, that went honestly longer than anticipated. Holy, we very, very long-winded on that one. So with that said, are there any other? Is there anything that you guys have questions about? Any opinion? You want to talk about semaglutide? That's super in vogue right now. What was semaglutide? Have you heard about semaglutide?
No.
Oh my word. All right, cool. Well, honestly, I was thinking about doing the semaglutide thing for next week, but semaglutide, have you heard about Ozempic?
Ozempic?
Yes.
Ozempic or Wegovy? Okay. So semaglutide it's a peptide. What a peptide is, it's just part of a branched chain amino acid, a protein. Okay. And what people have done, the FDA, Ozempic, and what's the other one? Wegovy, or what is it called?
Is that shot that you put in your? Oh, I have a friend doing that.
And so anyway, what it does is it makes it so that basically you feel full, and it makes it so that you don't consume as much food. It's anywhere from $250 a month to $900 a month, depending on where you get it sourced from. And yeah, right. And it is the first, if not the only. It's not even a medication. It's literally a peptide. That's why honestly the medical industry is just going nuts and just losing their mind, because it's something that's supernatural that like you don't need a prescription to buy it unless it's called Ozempic or Wegovy, because those have been branded by a pharmaceutical company. Okay, so you can buy these things from pharmacies anywhere, but if you say, hey, I want Ozempic, they can't sell it to you. They tweak the formula. But if you say semaglutide, or what is it, RLP1 or whatever it's called, but basically what it does is it makes it so that you feel like you don't feel hungry nearly as much. And when you do eat, you feel full super fast. The dark side to this, though, and it's not that bad, the dark side to this is they've done lots of studies on it, and people who use Ozempic or semaglutide, which is what I prefer to call it, is because you're eating so much less food, there's a direct, the average participant loses 15 to 10% of their total body weight, which is pretty awesome, right? But their body fat percentage typically gets worse. Meaning, let's say you're 40% body fat and you lose, let's say you're 200 pounds, you lose 30 pounds, 15% of your body weight, and you're still 40% body fat. That would be pretty depressing. And the reason is because it's so hard to eat more food, and you're definitely not prioritizing protein. Your body has to have protein. It has to have that. And when it doesn't have it and you're not consuming enough protein, what's it going to do? It's going to literally eat your muscles to get those amino acids, which is why resistance training and making sure you're getting 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight is so essential, especially if you're on semaglutide. And semaglutide is something that we are going to hear about for a long time. It is here to stay. I actually bought some. Beth wanted some. I got some. I bought some, and I'm going to do a 4-week experiment whenever it finally gets here, just so I know what it's like and what people are going through. But I have a lot of clients who are on it. So just FYI, that is in a nutshell, that is semaglutide. But I plan to I'm going to try to convince one of the people that I train to come on to this and talk about their experience with it. My sister-in-law has been on it for, I think, 3 weeks, and she has went from 225, and she's currently at 213. And she said, eating is no longer, she kind of has to force herself to eat. The only time she's still tempted to eat is when she's making food for the kids. And it's just there. But that is semaglutide. And now that I've said it, there's probably going to be lots of information bombing your phones.
Yeah.
Don't buy it until you either talk to me or Noah, because 9 times out of 10, it's going to be grossly overpriced if you do pursue that. Okay. I have 2 different people that I would recommend. And it's way less expensive than pretty much. That being said, if you are type 2 diabetic or pre-diabetic and you have decent insurance, a lot of times you can get it prescribed to you for about $41, $50 a month. But if that's not you, then you're looking around $250, $300 a month. And you should only cycle it 12 weeks on, 12 weeks off, because basically your body builds a resistance to it because it's a natural recurring peptide, and you'll have to increase your dosage to get the same effect. That's why you just can't rely on the drug to lose the weight. To keep it off, you have to develop the habits and the practice that go along with it. Okay, especially if you don't want to have the same body fat percentage by the end of the day.
To put it in perspective for you guys, 1% of your body weight is the max you'd recommend per week that you lose. And so if she was from 225 to 212 in 3 weeks, you said.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of losing 6 pounds in that time frame, she lost 13. So twice the maximum recommended amount. So that's why it's going to be a greater proportion muscle as well. And then I see a very similar story amongst people who get like gastric bypass or gastric sleeves too. It's the hazards of not cheating away there, but there are risks and downsides associated to cutting corners.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't even say I wouldn't go that. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say if someone's taking that and having talked to one or two of you and they are prioritizing protein, decrease their muscle loss, like if they're prioritizing protein when they do eat, while they take that, does that, or if you do this experiment, are you going to lose muscle?
I mean, we're going to find out. I know, I don't know. I have no idea. I am pretty good, traditionally speaking, at force feeding myself. Okay. Now, I'm super curious once I take the peptide, if that is going to be a struggle, because are you eating a stinking yummy,
Yasso-bar.
what is that, Aura?
Yasso-bar.
Those are great. All right. I got sidetracked. I need the semi-peptide. But anyway, but I'm curious on basically, I have had one client, and this is the only person who said this, but when he takes the semaglutide and he thinks about overeating or actually overeats, it makes him nauseous. I've had lots of people who have used it and not said that, but I don't know. I don't know what, but I'm for sure, unless something crazy happens, or I'm going to get my 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight if it kills me. But I've heard that is the hardest thing, but I won't be able to tell, for me personally, until after I've done it.
Yeah. To answer your question though, Laura, yes, if you do increase your protein to those amounts, and also in particular resistance training too, because a lot of people are like, oh, I'll just lose weight, I don't need to do that. Those two things in conjunction will help a ton. So Kellen will see if he even does experience muscle loss far less than someone who's just, oh, I'm taking it and I don't really care. I don't plan around it, do anything like that.
Yeah. And then one thing I was going to talk about though is we have trained hundreds, if not thousands of people since we opened who have had gastric bypass, the sleeve, and all variations of that. And here's the reason those people have the hardest time improving the way they look aesthetically is because they are consuming super low calories. They lost a ton of weight and they lost a ton of muscle mass. What that means is someone who should be able to consume 2,000, 3,000 calories, depending on if it's male or female, and be able to maintain their body weight. Now, when they eat like a normal human being, they rapidly gain weight because their muscle is like your metabolism. That's your motor. And they have none of it left. And then unfortunately, especially in the dark ages, like 3 or 4 years ago, the doctors or whoever would be like, you just do this, you're going to lose the weight, you're going to be happy. The problem is they would lose all this weight, but they would be they would still look not aesthetically pleasing. They would still be fat. They would have tons of skin, and in their body, it wasn't good. Now, if they had done gastric bypass which would be real difficult, and been able to hit their protein number and do resistance training, that narrative would be completely different. And semaglutide is the new version that's cheaper and probably healthier for you than gastric bypass and safer. Probably. I don't know that, so don't quote me. But if you don't do the resistance training and the gram of protein, you are not going to be happy, and it will hurt you long term. The same thing happens when you yo-yo diet. Okay? If you have a history of yo-yo dieting, I consumed 1,800 calories and I lost weight. And I tried to do it again and I couldn't lose weight. And I was eating the same stuff in the same amount. Why is that? Because your metabolism got damaged. Okay? And that just gets worse over time unless there's ways you can reset it. But go ahead, Noah.
No, I mean, you hit it all.
Oh, okay. It looked like you were going to say something on it. And that's why, jumping into this, after you get to your goal weight, it is super imperative to do a reverse diet, okay? Or if you get stalemated, and this is where we lose most people. They get to where they want to be. They're happy. I got this. And then they don't do a proper reverse diet. And they rapidly get their way back in or over time because they didn't reset their metabolism. What you need to do is hit your goal weight and then, in real simplistic term, slowly increase your calories by upping up your protein so that you can then consume 2,000, 2,400 calories and not gain weight. And that creates a new setting point in your brain. And that's where most people abandon ship. Okay? All right. Anything else before Axel and I go watch WWE?
Monday
That's
night
how we
SmackDown.
That's
Monday-
right. It's true. That's
Monday
right.
night SmackDown. Yep. I have a brother who loves all that mess.
Yeah. Monday night Raw, Friday night SmackDown. But yes.
Oh, Friday night SmackDown. Excuse me. Yes.
Yeah. That's the other one.
You were just
It's like, that's right. That's test.
All right. Well, thank you.
Absolutely.
Yep.
It was very helpful.
Awesome. All right. Anything else to anybody? We got 5 minutes if you need it. If not, I'm out. And you can go. You don't have to stay on. You're good.
I saw Deb raising a finger.
You said something in the beginning that I was just going to go back and listen to, but it was one of the podcasts you like, Kellen, the podcast you like to do, or
Yes, I'll put it in the chat, but it's Mind Pump.
mine.
It is, if you are interested in anything about resistance training, weight loss, anything to do with like becoming a healthier, fitter person, by far the best podcast out there. Noah, would you agree? Or I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. Pretty dang high up there. It impressed me. And it's far more approachable, especially for people who are not already studying the field. Like I had the Strength by Science podcast, which is very good, but it was like all deep dives and all people already know the literature and all the vernacular. This is a lot more accessible and a lot more practical.
Yes. Yes. And honestly, it's also entertaining too, which is nice.
Oh yeah, that always helps.
I actually get coached by these guys too once every second Wednesday.
Yeah.
So I may be a little biased, but I was so impressed with them. I paid to talk with them.
Yes, I guess you have to disclose that, huh?
Yeah, I think it's probably important. But it was because I was so impressed with the podcast. That's what sold me. I was like, holy cow. But
Oh yeah. But Deb,
anything else, Deb? Or
Deb, you had something? No? Okay.
Nope, I'm good. Thank you.
Of course.
awesome. All right, guys. Well, thank you. And we will see you next Monday, Lord willing. If you have any questions or whatnot that you want us to talk about beforehand, send them to myself or Noah about anything. Cool? All right. Ciao.
Appreciate you guys. Take care.